What's up, guys? Jay from Revolution Radio, and I just want to talk about the situation in China. As far as I understand it, quick catch up for anyone who doesn't know. This whole thing started in 2018 when a couple from Hong Kong went to Taiwan, and while there, the male killed the female. He then flew back to Hong Kong, where he admitted he committed the crime. The problem is he could not be sentenced in Hong Kong, and since there was no expedition or extradition laws, he could not be shipped back to Taiwan. So, the government of Hong Kong um, drafted up a plan for extradition of criminals, and this extradition law would work not only with Taiwan but also with China. That's what started all these protests because, as is in China or in Hong Kong, many admit that um, certain authors and um, citizens in general who speak out against China have turned up missing, have been um, wrongfully arrested, and so with this just gives them more cause to go into Hong Kong and um, and further persecute them. So the people of Hong Kong spoke out against this. Now, the problem being is many people believe that the Hong Kong protesters are in turn um, protesting China. But they're not exactly protesting China, they're more protesting their own government. Um, and ultimately, some of this goes back to about 99 years ago when Britain held Hong Kong. And they held it for 99 years. And this is why they don't follow the same laws as China. They were then, in 1997, they gave it back to China with certain stipulations. Basically, the people of Hong Kong were able to protest at free assembly and democracy. And that is supposed to run out in 2047. Although part of the negotiations were set up that there's 70 House seats in the Hong Kong government legislation, um, and 20 of the legislators are from China. 20 are voted on by the people of Hong Kong, who always vote pro-democracy. Then the other 30 are representatives, people from like insurance companies, people from their businesses, Wall Street, that sector, and healthcare, things like that. Now, since China knows this, they give a lot of their um, businesses, your major businesses, really good um, sales and tax cuts and incentives. We'll say incentives. So a majority of those 30 seats ends up being pro-China. So ultimately, there is a pro-China bias in the government of Hong Kong, even though every election, the Hong Kong people always vote for a more pro-democratic um, representation. But again, it doesn't hold true because of all these weird loopholes. So the people are actually protesting their own government. And the reason why this is such an issue is, as I stated before, in 2047, this should transition into China anyway. And we are only 20 years into this. And already China is showing its overreach. The people of Hong Kong have grown up with democracy, with freedom, and they are not willing to give it up so easily. They believe, and I think many people would agree, that if this law passes, they will abuse this law to go after the people of Hong Kong. Now, where it kind of affects us, aside from just, the whole humanitarian side of it, which we, probably should care a lot about, um, is it's affecting our art, our freedom of expression in America. There's a big trend on the NBA because the owner of the Houston Rockets, he retweeted a tweet that said "Free Hong Kong," and then China followed that by cutting ties with the Houston Rockets. They would not make their gear there. They would not um, publicize them anymore. And it's really kind of important because the Houston Rockets are actually really huge in China, namely because of players like Yao Ming, who was one of the best NBA players in history and was a Houston Rocket. Um, so this was costing the NBA money. So the NBA said, no, 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 we don't stand with this guy. He has nothing to do with us. So they were all in fear that China would retaliate against the NBA as a whole. Even players like James Harden did a video about how much they love China and the Chinese people. And I think that's fair to say that there's there's nothing bigoted or even hateful about being against another country's government. If you're against their people, that's something different. And some of the things that James Harden said were contradictory, but others did seem to just play up to the people. I'm not going to break down what he said, it's not that important. Um, and other um, avenues of creativity in America, such as our film industry, is highly regulated by China. They have to pass Chinese standards before they're even released. Disney, huge in this. Many um, movie companies are in line with this, so they don't offend the Chinese people because the Chinese people spend a lot of money going to movies, and the global market is far more important than the freedom of speech, according to Hollywood. Um, this also even affects gaming, where the video game company Blizzard, who's made World of Warcraft, um, Hearthstone, and I want to say Overwatch, but I'm not sure. I don't believe they have. I might be wrong. Yeah, I'm a gamer and I should know that. But so their top Hearthstone player, top in the world, he did a stream where he expressed a free Hong Kong sentiment and stood with Hong Kong. Blizzard proceeded to su suspend this individual for a year and pleaded with China to say that they're doing everything they can to make sure that this isn't something the company stands behind, and will make sure that anyone involved in these kind of actions will be punished. This player is American, by the way, but he's being oppressed by Chinese law. Even the players who were in the stream with him were also suspended. And mind you, this is the top player in the world. He's done for a year because he utilized his freedom of expression in America. I guess, even South Park has got involved with their most recent episode about the Chinese government. It's a great episode, by the way. I'm not even that much of a South Park guy, but it really explains so much, and it really expresses the issue that we're seeing in America, and that is that money is more important than human rights. And without a doubt, that's 100% true. As far as the beliefs of the oligarchs. Um, so if you want to protest anything, there's a million things to protest. Um, not only the NBA, not only Blizzard, not only the film industry. Uh, you know, Walmart is a huge one. Target. There's many, many. In fact, almost to the point where scarcely you cannot do that. You can't protest China's products because there are so many here in America. But what we do need to remember is, well, this whole thing about our rights um, being restricted by our government because of China. Well, that is important, and we should hold strong to that. We need to remember the people of Hong Kong and what they're facing. Because for them, it's not that they aren't able to express themselves or they'll get a little slap on the wrist. They'll be murdered. They'll be locked up for the rest of their lives. To the point where China will basically run Hong Kong. One question that was asked, can't Britain go back and discuss you know, the details of the agreement? And to that, I don't know. That actually seems like a fair point. I'm not sure. I would think they could. They could reestablish the finer points of the negotiation, but it's hard to say what they can and can't do, or even if they'll get involved. They kind of have their own problems right now. But yes, anyway, that is just kind of a quick rundown of what's going on in America with all of this, and just something to keep in mind. I'm sure I missed a lot of stuff in there. I was trying to get this done as fast as possible. If you have any more information, let me know. You can find me on Facebook, JDylan, JAYDYLAN. On Twitter, it's JCShowVIP. iTunes, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor. Look up Revolution Radio or Zach Dillon, ZAKKDILLON. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys.